I never thought love could feel like this, sweet and poisonous at the same time. She told me she loved me, whispered it against my lips in the quiet of the night, her body pressed into mine as if I was the only one she had ever wanted. But then, in the daylight, she chose him. She walked down the street holding his hand, smiling like he was her whole world, while I stood at the window, knowing that the same lips that kissed him had just tasted me the night before. Her name was Eliza, and she was like a storm I never saw coming. Everything about her was intoxicating, the way she laughed when she was nervous, the way her eyes held mine a little too long, the way her hand brushed mine like it was an accident when it wasn't. Even before anything happened, I felt it, the pull, the forbidden spark, the dangerous magnetism. But Eliza was engaged. She belonged to someone else. That was supposed to be the end of it. The night it all began, she came to me crying. She told me she wasn't sure about her engagement, that she felt trapped, that she didn't know what she wanted anymore. I pulled her into my arms, stroked her back, and whispered that everything would be okay. But when her tears soaked through my shirt, she tilted her face up to me, eyes red and lips trembling. And then she kissed me. It wasn't soft, like a shy mistake. It was hungry. Desperate. Her lips crashed into mine as if she'd been starving for years, and my whole body shivered. My breath caught as she pulled me closer, her fingers curling in my hair, tugging, demanding. For one wild second, I froze, my mind screaming that this was wrong, that she was somebody else's, that she didn't belong to me. But my body betrayed me. My lips parted, my arms wrapped around her, and I kissed her back. Our hands wandered, clumsy at first, then urgent. She pressed me against the wall, whispering my name like a confession, like a prayer. I felt her trembling as her fingers slipped beneath my shirt, dragging across my bare skin. Every nerve in my body lit up. I should have stopped it, I knew that. I should have pushed her away, told her to go home to her fiancé. But when she gasped, "Don't stop," I couldn't. I didn't want to. That night was fire, reckless, forbidden, unforgettable. And when I woke up with her tangled in my sheets, her naked body warm against mine, I thought maybe, just maybe, she would choose me. But she didn't. She chose him. And that was the beginning of my heartbreak. After that first night, nothing between us was the same. Every look lingered too long, every touch burned hotter than it should have, every silence carried a weight that no one else could hear. We never said it out loud, but both of us knew, we had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Eliza would text me at odd hours, "Are you awake?" or "Can I come over?" Sometimes she wouldn't even wait for me to answer, just show up at my door, eyes dark, lips trembling, as if she was fighting herself and losing. The moment I let her in, the battle was over. Her body would crash into mine, hands desperate, kisses feverish, as though she needed me to breathe. And God, I let her. I let her every single time. We carved out our own secret world between midnight and dawn. Behind locked doors and tangled sheets, she wasn't his fiancée, she was mine. She whispered things to me in the dark she could never say in the daylight. She confessed how she dreamed of me, how she imagined my hands instead of his, how she hated herself for wanting me more than she ever wanted him. Her guilt bled into my skin with every kiss, but so did her hunger. Sometimes, after we had exhausted ourselves in each other's arms, she would lie against me and cry. "I don't know what's wrong with me," she'd whisper, her voice breaking. "I love him, but I can't stay away from you." And I'd hold her tighter, even though those words cut me open. Because I loved her. I loved her in a way that hurt, in a way that made me foolish, in a way that made me accept being her secret. In public, she smiled for him, wore his ring, let him touch the body that had been tangled with mine only hours before. I watched her from across crowded rooms, her laughter ringing out as he held her hand, and I wondered if anyone else could see it, the flicker in her eyes when they found mine. No one ever did. That flicker was only for me. The secrecy should have been torture, but instead it made everything sharper, hotter, more dangerous. Every stolen kiss in the backseat of her car, every quick touch under the table, every midnight confession, it all felt like we were burning alive, and I couldn't stop feeding the flames. I told myself she would leave him. That she had to. That no one could live a lie forever. But every morning, when she left my bed to go back to his, I felt the truth: she was never really mine. Not in the way I wanted. And yet, when she came back, whispering "I need you" against my lips, I let her in all over again. Because I needed her too. The more time passed, the harder it became to separate reality from the fantasy we created in stolen hours. To the world, Eliza was his fiancée, planning a wedding, posting pictures of their smiles, and accepting compliments about how perfect they looked together. But to me, she was the woman who crawled into my bed at night, skin flushed, lips swollen from our kisses, whispering promises she never said aloud in the daylight. It was a dangerous rhythm, one that kept my heart on edge. She would call me after dinners with him, her voice hushed. "I can't stop thinking about you," she'd confess. And before long, I'd hear her knocking on my door, the scent of his cologne still clinging to her clothes as she stripped them off, desperate to erase him from her body with mine. Every time, I told myself it would be the last. Every time, I lied. There were moments when I believed she might actually choose me. She'd hold my face in her hands after we made love, her eyes glistening in the low light. "You feel like home," she'd say softly. "I don't know how to live without you." Those words burned into me, stitched themselves into my heart like a tattoo I could never erase. But then, the next morning, she would slip her ring back on and return to him. The double life was tearing her apart, but it was destroying me too. I started noticing the little cracks, the hesitation in her smile when he kissed her in public, the way she pulled her hand back too quickly when I brushed against her at a party, the way her eyes sought me out across the room, even when she was standing right beside him. Those cracks were my oxygen, proof that she was just as trapped in this as I was. And yet, she never stopped planning her wedding. The dress fittings, the invitations, the rehearsals, they all went on, while I drowned in the knowledge that when she walked down that aisle, it wouldn't be toward me. The pull between us grew unbearable. When we were apart, I felt like I was starving. When we were together, I felt like I was stealing. Every touch was both salvation and sin, every kiss a reminder that I was both loved and betrayed. One night, after another frantic tangle of bodies and whispered apologies, I finally asked, "When are you going to choose me?" She froze. Her lips trembled, her eyes shone with guilt, but her silence told me everything. She wanted me. But she wasn't willing to lose him. And I realized, with a sharp ache in my chest, that I was the shadow she kept tucked away, her secret, her sin, her escape. But never her choice. The closer her wedding came, the more reckless we became. It was as if the ticking clock only sharpened the hunger between us. Every stolen touch, every secret meeting, every night spent in my arms felt heavier, like we were squeezing a lifetime of love into borrowed hours before she became someone else's forever. Eliza would come to me after cake tastings, after dress fittings, after smiling at photographers who called her the perfect bride. She would drop her purse on my floor, grab my face with trembling hands, and kiss me so fiercely that I could taste the desperation on her lips. Sometimes she would still be wearing the white lace she had tried on for him, only to peel it off in my bedroom, letting me be the first one to see what he never had. It was cruel, and I knew it. Cruel because she let me taste the life I wanted but could never have. Cruel because I let myself believe, even for a heartbeat, that her choosing him was just a mistake she would correct. But the invitations had already gone out. The venue was booked. Her ring sparkled on her hand as she tangled it in my hair, dragging me down to her lips with a hunger that felt like punishment as much as pleasure. One night, I asked the question I had been dreading, "Why are you marrying him, if you can't stop coming back to me?" She stilled, her eyes shining in the darkness. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "Because it's easier." The words cut deeper than a knife. Easier. Choosing him was easier than the truth of loving me. Easier than explaining herself to her family, to her friends, to the world that expected her to smile in a white dress and walk down the aisle toward a man. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that love isn't supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be real. But when she kissed me, when she pressed her trembling body against mine, all I could do was surrender. I hated myself for it, but I wanted her too much to let go. And maybe, somewhere deep down, I hoped she would change her mind. The weeks slipped by like sand through my fingers. She talked about flowers and playlists by day, but by night she was tangled in my sheets, whispering my name as if it was the only truth she had left. Every time she left, I told myself it was the last. That I couldn't keep breaking like this. But the second she came back, eyes wide and lips trembling, I let her in again. Because even though I knew she would never be mine, I couldn't stop loving her. And that love was slowly killing me. The night before her wedding, she came to me. I thought she wouldn't. I thought she'd be too busy with rehearsals, too surrounded by family and friends, too locked into the performance of a bride-to-be. But at 2 a.m, I woke to a knock at my door, soft and frantic. And when I opened it, there she was, hair undone, makeup smudged from tears, her eyes filled with the kind of panic that can only come from standing on the edge of a decision that changes everything. "Eliza," I whispered, stunned. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "But I couldn't. I couldn't go through the night without you." And just like that, she was in my arms again. The kiss was desperate, trembling, more fragile than ever before. It wasn't just lust, it was fear, longing, heartbreak, and the silent scream of two people who knew they were about to lose each other. She clung to me like I was her anchor, her lips moving against mine with a hunger that bordered on painful. We stumbled to my bed, shedding clothes like they were lies we couldn't bear to wear anymore. She kissed every inch of me like she was memorizing it, like she was trying to tattoo my skin into her memory before it was too late. And I let her, even though each touch was both heaven and hell. "Tell me not to go," she whispered, her forehead pressed to mine as her fingers tangled with mine. "Please, tell me not to marry him." My heart stopped. Those words, I had dreamed of them, begged for them silently every night she left me. And yet, in that moment, I couldn't say it. I saw the fear in her eyes, the war between her heart and the expectations that had chained her. I knew if I told her not to go, she might stay. But she would hate herself for it. She would resent me for being the reason she broke her world apart. So I didn't. I kissed her instead. We made love like it was the last time, because deep down, I knew it was. Her nails dragged down my back, her gasps filled the room, and her whispered "I love you" shattered me. I held her until the first light of morning slipped through the curtains, and I wished with every piece of me that the sun would never rise. But it did. When she slipped her ring back onto her finger and stood by the door, tears running down her face, I wanted to beg her to stay. But I stayed silent. And then she left. Tomorrow, she would be his bride. But tonight, she had been mine. And that would haunt me forever. The morning of her wedding felt like a funeral to me. I woke up in an empty bed that still smelled like her perfume, the sheets creased where her body had lain just hours before. My skin still burned from her touch, and yet she was gone, dressing in white silk to vow herself to him. I told myself not to go. I told myself it would be too cruel, too painful, too unbearable to watch. But when the time came, I found myself standing at the back of the church, hidden among faces that didn't know my secret, my chest tightening with every note of the organ. And then she walked in. Eliza looked radiant, glowing in her gown, veil draped delicately over her face. Everyone gasped at her beauty, but I saw something no one else did, the flicker in her eyes, the weight in her smile, the shadow of the night before lingering in the way her lips trembled. I knew she was thinking about me. I knew she was remembering how my hands had held her, how my lips had whispered her name, how I had kissed away her tears only hours ago. But she kept walking. Step by step, toward him. When she reached the altar, he took her hands in his, smiling so wide it nearly blinded me. And I stood there, invisible, my heart cracking with every word of their vows. When she said, "I do," it felt like a blade to my chest. She was binding herself to him forever, even though her body still carried the marks of my love. As the crowd erupted in applause, I slipped outside, choking on air that suddenly felt too heavy. The church bells rang like mockery, each toll echoing the truth, she was his now. And yet, when I closed my eyes, all I could see was her naked in my bed, whispering "I love you" into my mouth. The reception was worse. I watched from the shadows as she danced with him, her veil gone, her laughter forced but convincing. Everyone saw a happy bride. Only I saw the fracture in her smile, the way her eyes darted to me when she thought no one else was looking. For a moment, I thought she might break. That she would leave him mid-dance, run to me, choose me once and for all. But she didn't. She stayed in his arms, spinning beneath the lights, her dress flowing like a lie wrapped around her body. And that's when I realized, she had chosen. She chose him. But the way her gaze lingered on me told me the truth she couldn't speak, choosing him wouldn't stop her from needing me. And deep down, I knew she would still come back. I thought her wedding would be the end of us. That once she stood in front of him and vowed her forever, she would finally let me go. I tried to convince myself of it, tried to cut the invisible string that tied us together. But a week later, I heard the knock at my door. It was late, past midnight, the kind of hour when guilt and desire blur into the same thing. I opened the door, and there she was, his wife now, still wearing his ring, but looking at me like she was starving. "Eliza," I whispered, my chest tightening. "Why are you here?" Her answer was a broken confession. "Because I can't stop." Before I could protest, she kissed me. The taste of her was enough to undo every wall I had tried to build since that day in the church. She was fire in my arms, her hands trembling as they tore at my clothes, her body pressed so tightly against mine as if she was afraid I'd vanish if she let go. We fell into bed like we always had, reckless and desperate. But this time it was different. This time, she was someone else's wife. And yet, the way she moved against me, the way she gasped my name, the way her nails sank into my skin, it was as if she belonged to me more than ever. Afterward, lying in the tangle of sheets, she stared at her ring, tears in her eyes. "I thought marriage would make it stop," she whispered. "I thought choosing him would silence this, whatever this is." "And did it?" I asked softly. She shook her head, her voice cracking. "No. It only made me want you more." Her words were a knife and a bomb all at once. I wanted to hate her for her weakness, for her cowardice, for making me live in the shadows of her life. But the truth was, I was just as weak. Because even knowing she would leave my bed in the morning to go back to him, I still wanted her. The cycle began again. She wore his smile in public but gave me her body in secret. She held his hand at dinners but pressed her lips to mine behind closed doors. She laughed at his jokes, but it was my name she moaned in the dark. And every time she left, the guilt gnawed deeper. I knew I was destroying myself by letting her come back. But I also knew I would open the door every time she knocked. Because the truth was simple, brutal, and impossible to escape, she had chosen him. But she still slept with me. It couldn't last forever. Some part of me always knew that. Secrets this heavy eventually crush you, no matter how sweet the forbidden nights feel. The breaking point came quietly. Not in a fight, not in some dramatic confession, but in the silence after she left my bed one morning. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the sheets still warm from her body. And for the first time, instead of replaying her kisses in my head, I felt hollow. I realized I had been waiting. Waiting for her to choose me, waiting for her to be brave, waiting for her to walk away from him. But every day that passed, she chose him again. Every morning she slipped her ring back on, she reminded me that I was only her secret, her escape, her midnight sin. When she came again that night, I didn't open the door right away. She knocked softly, calling my name, her voice shaking. When I finally let her in, she fell into my arms, kissing me like she was starving. But something inside me didn't respond the way it used to. My body wanted her, but my heart was tired. "Eliza," I whispered, pulling back. "We can't keep doing this." Her eyes widened, tears welling. Don't say that. Please. You're the only thing that feels real to me. I cupped her face, my thumb brushing away a tear. Then why don't you choose me? Her silence was the answer I already knew. She loved me, but not enough to lose him, not enough to risk the world's judgment, not enough to give me more than the shadows. That night, we made love one last time. It was softer than before, slower, almost mournful. Every kiss felt like goodbye, every touch like a memory being carved into my skin. She cried in my arms afterward, whispering apologies I didn't want to hear. When morning came, she dressed quietly. She kissed me at the door, lingering, trembling, as if she wanted to say something more. But she didn't. She slipped away, back to her husband, back to the life she had chosen. And I stood there, watching the door close, knowing that if she knocked again, my heart might betray me all over. But for the first time, I also knew I had to let her go. Because love shouldn't live in the shadows. Love shouldn't make you feel like someone's secret. Love shouldn't break you. She chose him. But she still sleeps with me, at least in my memories, in the ghosts of nights that haunt me, in the ache that will never quite leave my chest. And maybe that's the cruelest heartbreak of all.